Have you ever wondered what secrets lie hidden in the depths of a winter storm? The blizzard had rolled in suddenly, the kind that swallowed the world in white silence and howling winds. Daniel McCarthy, a retired Army veteran, had seen many battles in his life, but nothing quite like the storm that engulfed the Montana wilderness that December. He had returned to his small log cabin in the mountains to find peace after years of deployments overseas. Solitude, quiet, and the simplicity of life had become his companions. But on that morning, as the snow fell in sheets, he noticed something unusual. From his frosted cabin window, he saw movement barely out in the tree line. At first, he thought it was just the storm playing tricks on his eyes, yet something dark was buried beneath the thick snowdrifts, a massive shadow struggling weakly. Against the blinding white, it looked like a giant creature trying to lift itself but failing. Daniel bundled himself in his heavy coat, pulled on thick boots, and stepped out into the biting cold. The wind tore at his face, each breath turning into crystals that stung his lungs. Still, he pressed forward. Years in the military had trained him to keep moving despite discomfort. His instincts told him that whatever was out there needed help. As he trudged closer, his heart skipped a beat. It wasn't a fallen tree or a drifting pile of logs. It was a horse. A giant black horse, half buried in the snow, sides heaving as it struggled for air. Its eyes were wide with fear and exhaustion, nostrils flaring clouds of steam. The animal let out a deep guttural cry that cut through the storm like a plea. Daniel froze in awe. He had seen many horses in his life, but never one this large. The animal was enormous, its body muscled like a warhorse, with a presence that seemed almost mythical. For a moment, he wondered if his mind was playing tricks on him. But when the horse let out another desperate cry, Daniel's instincts kicked in. "Easy, boy," he muttered, voice steady and calm, the same tone he used to calm frightened soldiers under fire. "I've got you." He dropped to his knees and began brushing the snow away from the horse's body. The storm had nearly frozen its legs in place, trapping it in a pit of ice and drift. Each scoop of snow burned his fingers despite his gloves, but he kept digging, pulling handfuls of ice away to free its legs. The horse flinched at first, teeth bared in pain, but Daniel didn't stop. He spoke softly the entire time, telling it stories about his unit, about his cabin, about how he had come here searching for peace. Words didn't matter, tone did. And slowly, the horse began to trust him. It took nearly an hour of grueling effort, his muscles screaming in protest, but finally, the horse managed to push itself up. With a guttural roar, it surged to its feet, snow scattering like an explosion around them. Daniel stumbled back, chest heaving, staring up at the towering creature before him. The horse was magnificent. Its coat was midnight black, glistening with ice. Its mane was wild, tangled with frost, and its eyes burned with a strange intelligence. It was taller than any draft horse he had ever seen, nearly impossible in size, as if it had stepped out of legend. Then something happened that left Daniel truly stunned. Instead of bolting into the woods, the horse stepped toward him, carefully, purposefully, as though it recognized him. Its massive head lowered until its nose brushed against his shoulder. Daniel froze, every instinct telling him that such a powerful beast could kill him in a second if it panicked, but it didn't. Instead, it exhaled a warm gust of breath against his neck, almost like a sigh of relief. Daniel blinked, overwhelmed. In that moment, something passed between the man unspoken bond forged not from ownership, but from survival. "Guess you're stuck with me now," Daniel whispered. The storm raged for 2 more days, but Daniel managed to lead the horse back to his cabin. It was a struggle, half dragging, half guiding the enormous creature through the snow, but the horse followed him faithfully, as though knowing he had saved its life. Inside the small barn beside his cabin, Daniel laid down blankets and hay, found carrots in his pantry, left over from his small winter garden. The horse devoured them hungrily, its strength slowly returning. Over the following days, Daniel cared for the animal like a comrade, cleaned its wounds, brushed the frost from its coat, and spoke to it constantly. Though it never made a sound beyond deep, resonant breaths, the horse seemed to listen. It would lower its head when he approached, and sometimes nudge him gently, as if to say thank you, but the mystery gnawed at him. Where had it come from? How had such a massive animal ended up lost in the mountains, alone in a blizzard? There were no ranches for miles, no signs of ownership. Its hooves bore no shoes, its body no brand. It was as though the creature had simply appeared from the snow itself. One night, as the fire crackled in his cabin, Daniel sat staring at the horse through the barn window. Memories surfaced of comrades lost, of nights in foreign deserts where survival was uncertain. He realized the horse had given him something he hadn't felt in years: purpose. It wasn't just about saving an animal. It was about saving himself. Weeks passed, and the bond between man and horse grew stronger. Daniel named him Shadow, for the way his black coat seemed to absorb light. Together, they explored the snowy forests, Daniel on foot at first, then eventually riding once trust was built. Shadow was unlike any horse he had known, fast, powerful, yet strangely gentle with him. Word eventually spread in the nearby town. People came to see the legendary black horse the veteran had rescued. Some offered money, others warned him it might be dangerous. A few whispered that Shadow was untamed and ordinary horseat, all that he was a descendant of wild war horses from centuries past. Or perhaps something even older, a spirit of the mountains. Daniel didn't care what people thought. Shadow wasn't just a horse. He was a companion, a reminder that life still held surprises worth living for. But the true shock came months later. One spring morning, as the snow melted and the meadows turned green, Daniel awoke to frantic sounds from the barn. He rushed outside, fearing the worst. What he found left him speechless. Shadow was not alone. Beside him stood another horse, smaller, younger, but with the same midnight black coat and fiery eyes. Somehow, impossibly, Shadow had led another of his kind from the wilderness to Daniel's ranch. Daniel laughed aloud, tears in his eyes. For years he had lived alone, believing solitude was his fate. Yet here he was, surrounded not only by one miracle, but two. The veteran who once sought peace in isolation had found it in companionship and bond between man and beast that defied explanation. And deep down, Daniel knew this was no accident. The storm had brought Shadow to him for a reason: to heal him, to remind him that even after the darkest winters, life had a way of returning stronger, brighter, and more beautiful than before.